it's on YouTube. So I'm trying to make sure I get this to not be so bright. But I can't come out the glasses because then I can't see. But we could be like this, trying to read. Hi, Pooh. My daughter's on here also watching my highlighting. So welcome to the show. I am Nisha. I am joined by my friend Janice. And today we're going to be talking about effective communication and relationship sabbatical. So as I'm getting myself prepared, I can't tell if can you tell if it's bright, everything good?
That's good. You just casting a shadow.
Oh, okay, that's fine. All right, so my new book, Feel It to Heal It. Trying to make sure it's not so. We're going to be in chapter 9 about not ignoring yourself, and chapter 10, relationship sabbatical. And I feel like this topic is very important, regardless of the type of relationship you're in, whether it's a friendship, you're dating, or you're married, whatever, our relationships and communication is very important. So me and Janice were talking earlier about a little bit of my background with, what did you call the communication? Underdeveloped communication skills. And I definitely had a lot of undeveloped communication skills that definitely led to a lot of bad decision making, which a lot of people tend to do. So for me, in chapter 9, it talks about how I went from being married and then transitioned to dating and not giving myself that time to heal. And when I met the last boyfriend, which was here in Tallahassee at Martini Monday at the Shriners, and the communication was pretty good. And the thing that I ignored myself on was when, as it states in the book, when he was talking about being a roommate. Mm-hmm. And of course, in my head, I was like, okay, he wants to move in, but if you're being a roommate, that means you need your own room and be paying bills. But you can't have your own room here because that's just not how my place is set up, obviously. So of course I ignored it, but then I thought on it because of the financial situation, which would save me money, which was bad on my part. But that was a decision that I made at the time. So when he brought it up again, of course, I had already thought about it. Turn this heater off. Yeah, it's quite warm. So when he mentioned it again, I went for it. And that is where I messed up.
And how many? It's been 2 years, 3 years?
Almost 2 years.
Do you still communicate with that person?
No, not really. He's text or whatever. He says hi. If I see him, we're.
Okay, but you're cordial, but
right.
Okay.
No, once that relationship ended, that's the reason I decided to go on a relationship sabbatical. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, because the communication with us was horrible. Like I learned from a lot of mistakes in my previous mm-hmm. relationship, in my marriage. And I realized that I didn't communicate very well, mm-hmm. certain things. So I tried to make up for that in the relationship with him. Mm-hmm. Right. And
you have to communicate what you want and what you don't want.
Right.
In my experience.
And to me, that's what I was doing in that relationship. But dealing with the person that I was dealing with, that person had underdeveloped communication skills majorly. So we were constantly clashing, fussing in front of the kids, which I don't believe in. Because, of course, kids see that and think it's okay, and they grow up doing the same thing. So I just ignored a lot of things trying to be in this relationship, trying to make it work.
Because you didn't want to fail.
I didn't want to fail again, right? Looking like a failure.
Mm-hmm.
So then that put me on to this whole relationship, sabbatical. Taking time out for myself, taking time to just heal and learn how to really effectively communicate with everyone around me and any new person that comes in my life.
So to you, like based on your experience and what you wrote about and what you've done, how you live, what do you classify? How do you classify communication as effective?
Clearly stating what I want, don't want, and asking questions to that person to make sure that they're understanding what it is I'm saying.
Okay. And are we specifically talking about romantic relationships?
Not just romantic relationships. It could be with family,
friends, family. The way you communicate with your children is going to be different. Your coworkers, business partners. So it
definitely with
effectively has so many levels.
I think communicating with kids is probably the effective communication with kids. I think is one of the most important things because they're still little and they still have a lot of developing to do. So when they're little, they can take those lessons with them and it's much easier. I feel like, my unasked opinion. I feel like it's much easier when they're older because once we're older, it's harder to tell an adult what to do. Adults, we don't like being told what to do.
You've been being who you are for so long. That's why it's so hard for us to. That's why I believe we continue to fall into so many of the same patterns, the same type of partners, the same. Like I think it all just ties into. Like just ties back together. Like this is for the reason we have like our default setting, our default way of okay, well, I'm not gonna talk then. Like we have that what we result to, and then it's like getting back to that happy place, that safe place where you are effectively communicating.
Right.
Because like how you mentioned talking to the kids, that's a point. Like to me, having been a child that was verbally abused just because parent had a bad day and I was there and that's it. Like I think that even just the way we frame like communicating with kids, like if a child is hyper, instead of saying, why don't you calm down? Because that's like negative. Right. So, hey, what's going on? What can I help you with? Just like other ways to present it.
And remember when the kids were up here earlier, and instead of me telling them, I'm like, hey, when I'm in the office, what should you
exactly?
Because they already know, and it's not me,
I'm not bashing you.
Right.
I know I taught you this, and I know you know this. So
and I just want you to think. And so I'm constantly working on that myself, for myself, as well as my kids, because I don't want them to, because I want them to be better, especially better than me. And that's always my goal is for my kids to be better at communicating than I was.
Or equipped with the proper tools to be good at communicating, whether they choose to be or not.
Correct.
At least you've equipped them
with the tools that they need correctly. Yeah. So, other questions?
So, how important do you think empathy is when you're communicating as the listener and also as the person presenting or the person talking?
I think that would meet. That's very close to 100, if not at 100, because you're trying to understand that person.
Mhm.
And if you're not trying to understand, it's going to be hard to communicate, I believe. Because if you're not putting yourself in that person's shoes, you then, how would you know how to understand that person and to be able to, like we said, effectively communicate with them?
Okay. And then this is something that I had to learn because the way my brain is set up, as soon as you say it's quick. So as soon as something comes out, it's already registered up here and something ready to come back out. So the biggest hurdle in communicating is actually listening, like actively listening, not breathing deep and like non-verbal communication. It's crazy.
That's another thing that I have to work on, and I notice a lot of people don't. Other people, they don't realize it. That your body language, that nonverbal communication, can say a whole lot more. It'll say more than words a lot of times, because you can say nothing, and if I'm talking and you're doing like this, front of your face, I'm wondering now what's going through your head. So I'm probably going to lose my train of thought because I'm wondering what you're thinking. Or change. Yeah.
Because now you're trying to adjust to what you think they got going on. And again, always, what are you trying to say? Well, I feel like, or I think, instead of all that, just ask.
I'm going to give an example for the viewers. One of my relationships I was in, I'm not a big gamer. I played video games as a kid and stuff, but not as an adult, really. So to get close with this particular partner and trying to make things work, I asked to play the video game, like, teach me how to play the video game. And it wasn't that I really wanted to learn how to play. It was just me wanting to spend time with that person and be close to that person. The person kissed me on my forehead, said, "Don't worry about it." Yeah. That was my response. That was the response to me wanting to play with them so we could be close, was a kiss on the forehead and said, "Don't worry about it," and carried on. And it's like, do you not realize how that made me feel as your partner?
Did you talk to them about how it made you feel?
Oh, afterwards when stuff was blowing up. But at that time, I was so hurt. I didn't know what to say or how to say it. Yeah. And it'd be things like that in relationships that people don't realize. It's small things that adds up to.
And see what for me, what has been working with this has been like, hey, pause. All right, we're gonna pause for a moment. Literally, like, pause. I need to I'm missing something. I missed something. It's a disconnect. I don't understand that. Could you re-explain that? Maybe I'm slow. Tell me something. Like I have to try to, like, I hate to interrupt you, but I don't understand. Before you go further, let me get some clarity here before you go forward. Like that's the habit I have in, like, so many situations now, because I don't want to get to a point assuming and then stuff just go left.
Right. So now I'm better at it now. So now when you tell me no about things, I'm going to keep questioning, and it probably annoy you, but I'm definitely better when it comes to communication.
When you told me what we were going to be talking about, I documented something I found online, and it was like recommendations on how to be more effective when communicating.
Okay.
And I'm taking this. I look at this from a perspective. I'm the person that everybody calls. So sometimes people just need to listen, right? Sometimes they need advice. So the first thing is understanding, like, what's needed. Like, for yourself, if I'm trying to communicate to you, Nisha, like, hey, XYZ, be able to understand who I'm trying to reach, what I'm trying to convey, or vice versa. If you're trying to reach me, are you reaching out for me to preach to you or for me to just listen because you don't want to hear that? You know, I already know this is stupid. I already know. So I just need you to listen. Please don't tell me I told you so. You know, like understanding the need, listening by placing people before you, asking for clarity when you don't understand. Um, and then be mindful of the passive ways that we tend to communicate. To me, passively communicating is texting, emailing, sending a message when instead of communicating directly to the person.
Because those messages can get misconstrued easily.
So that the passive communication we go through, turning the TV off, the phone off, giving your undivided attention, just being personable, being respectful of people, being mindful of your body language, your nonverbal, your faces, you know, all of that stuff. So I think that's something to be considered for the audience. Like if anybody is trying to figure out how to affect them, like I think those are the tips would be helpful.
Very much so. For them, for me, for all of us. We're on time. So we weren't going to stay on too long.
Yes. Let's tell you. Okay, question. Effective communication. So we're not just talking about romantic relationships. So how do you feel about how I mentioned being like the person that people call kind of like an emotional dumpster? How do you feel about people just call and as soon as you answer your phone, girl, and just go in? Like, do you think there should be rules to venting and effectively communicating that way?
You gotta have some type of boundary. However, depending on the call, if I get a call, say from you, another friend, and I can hear in their voice like something's going on. If I can, as long as I can go ahead and listen and be effective to that person, I think that's important because you never know what that person may have going on, and they may just be going off on the deep end. Right, and just need you to listen. So I think it's just more of, I think you gotta have a boundary, but I think it's also important to listen to that.
The background, and
right,
tone, and all that. I got you. Okay. So, what about a situation where they just had a bad day? You tending to your kids, they call you, and you don't have the capacity. Like, are you comfortable telling people, like, based on how you develop your communication skills to this point, are you comfortable telling people, like, I don't have the mental capacity for that today, or I can't do that right now, I can't listen to that right now, or you're gonna have to call me on another day. Hopefully I can still be of assistance, but do you have any thoughts on that?
I have not been very good at it. There has been a situation where I really could not, because I was already emotionally drained. And as I was telling it to that other person, they just were not understanding and accepting and feeling like, oh, because you're the person that I'm close to, you're the person that I can call and speak with when I'm emotional. And this is what you do, you advocate. And I'm like trying to tell them, understand, I advocate for it, but I'm still human. I still go through those things too. And if I'm going through something, I'm not going to be effective to you because I'm going through it. So there's no telling where my mind frame, my mindset is at the time. So I could misguide you, and I don't want to do that.
Okay. All right. I agree. Like being the person is draining. And again, if you're giving so much of you, like you have to be mindful of you and your needs and where you are, where your skills are, and what you can and can't handle, in my opinion, before you can even embark on what the children, anybody else got going on. How are you communicating with yourself? Like I know I have an associate who is always negative self-talk. Always, well, I'm not this, but you speaking that right on yourself. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So we have to be like, we talking about effectively communicating with other people, but we have to be mindful of our self-talk in our head. Are we feeling inadequate? Why are we, exploring that and understanding how we communicate with ourselves? Again, like last time, you doing nothing for nobody if you're not good, if you're not on point. And you're gonna consistently always be a work in progress, but being aware of you and how you're talking to yourself and thinking to and about yourself.
For me, one of the ways that helps me to do that, like when I'm having that little funk that I can tell you about sometimes, is I burn sage, and as I put in chapter 10, I have a playlist, and I have my mindset playlist, one for business, one for clubbing, one for some of everything. But first thing in the morning, I'm burning my sage, drinking my Red Bull, doing what I need to do. But my mindset is on my mindset playlist. My music is my mindset playlist, so that I'm putting certain things into my brain to get me ready for the day, those positive affirmations to say that, you can, and just stay positive throughout the day.
Yeah, that effectively communicating with yourself and your stuff in place. And another thing that I thought of was ensuring that whoever you're communicating to or receiving communication from understands that it's a safe space where they can be vulnerable, they're not going to be judged. Right. And it's really hard not to be defensive a lot of times, where say I talk to my husband and I'm like, you left water on the sink again. Well, you had water on the sink Tuesday. That like just automatically defenses, well, other people do it, or well, I'm sorry you feel that way, but that wasn't my intention. Like that, those types of defensive statements can be very damaging to a discussion, in a relationship, a partnership, work, business, children, all that stuff. Like just being defensive. Like if anyone is going to come to communicate with you, you just have to not take it off, but literally like kind of like pull down your mask where you can receive or whatever, pull it down so you can receive it and not take it as an attack. And sometimes it's hard too, but that's what I believe.
No, yeah. I agree, because even during our last talk when Anthony was here, that's why I kind of had to back up on what I was saying, because I was like, okay, he's not saying or trying to say me personally, but I was feeling like attacked and stuff. So I had to like kind of pull it back some and recognize.
Because it's like we discussing something like not, but it'll hit, and then the way you're communicating with that person or your client or your partner, with whoever, your child, then your whole mood change, and then it's just like, well, I see you coming at me away, so now I have to play defense, and that's not even what's going on. So I think, I think that's important to just be mindful. Like if I start a conversation with my mister, sometimes depending on his mood, sometimes it depends on how he been eating that past week, because fresh food make it operate different in your brain than
frozen and stuff.
For real. So I consider all of that, and the way you start a conversation, the way you end it, that's just equally as important. Like, hey, I want to talk to you. I need to communicate something to you. It's not an attack. Don't take it. You shouldn't have to get those disclaimers. But again, when people's skills are not, when you got a black belt in communication, they just getting started, they ain't got no belt yet, you got to be mindful of that.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's something I wish I would have known prior to all of this. However, because of it, now that we're here, the objective is to teach others
to be better from this point
forward.
I agree.
All right, so we've been 24 minutes.
Just again, like communication, your skills. Like I mentioned before you start recording, it's a muscle. You got to work it out, just like every other muscle in your body on your body. Like communication will work for you if you work toward it.
I made a little, well, I printed out a little note here, and we've been talking about clear messages. But I don't know if we discussed about the correct message.
Okay.
So that's something I know that I think that it still ties into how we say things, not being defensive all the time, to make sure that we are giving a correct message to the person that's supposed to be receiving
it. Giving the correct message.
And then if not, like I was telling you before, for me, I ask questions. You know, that's my thing now, whereas before I didn't ask questions. Now, you know, I'm asking those questions, and a lot of times I feel uneasy because I'm asking a lot of questions, and I know a lot of people can't handle that, and they feel like they're being interviewed or feel like they're being interrogated. But it's just me wanting to know and to make sure that whatever fully understand. I want to fully understand, and I want you to fully understand, you know, what's going on here. And in the relationship that I was in after the marriage, plus in my marriage, that definitely wasn't going on. Yes, ma'am.
So, for all the people who listening who've read the book and those who have yet to read it and are going to go buy one tonight so they can read it and know what we're talking about the next time. Do you believe that your relationship with your husband or the communication with y'all improved after you were divorced?
Yes.
And there were no technical expectations or gender roles or societal standards on what you should and should not do? Do you think that any of that had anything to do with it, or?
It definitely had a lot to do with it. Also, well, yeah, because I can say we, because this is something we've talked about. So one of the things that we learned from it, I know there's Anthony knocking at the door.
He is sorry for the party. His bad.
Yes. One of the things that we agreed on, that we talked about, is that we didn't have that ideal parent growing up. The idea of family household setting. So we didn't know what it was really like. So it was just us learning as we went along.
And then
but after
your experience, but when you're learning and then you realize you got to unlearn to relearn. Okay.
And so I'm still unlearning a lot of things and learning a ton of more things. And so yeah, our communication has definitely gotten better after divorce. We're still very cordial, we're still very cool, but when it comes to making sure that we fully understand what it is that we're going to do when it comes to our kids and everything, we're much better.
And hindsight, looking back at the time that you were with your husband, was he, do you think, like you say, you were not a good communicator? Like looking back, do you think he actually was, and you just had your own stuff to work through?
Unfortunately, not. We both had communication issues going on. We're joined now by my cousin Aunt.
With headphones on.
And a mask on. And the hoodie. Welcome. So we're talking about effective communication and all those beautiful things. It's okay. So what was I saying about? Oh yeah, how?
So you said he actually was not that good of a communicator either. Like hindsight, looking back, like we both played too much and we need to get okay.
Yeah, we definitely had a lot of things that we.
As time goes on, they're gonna get better and better. Though.
Yeah.
You know?
As time has gone, they have definitely
get more tools in your toolbox and continue to work on those muscles, those communication muscles.
Exactly.
Build them things up.
And we do that definitely for our kids. So although we're not together, as he put it, we are still together because we have kids together. So we're gonna always have that, relationship with each other, that bond. But we also need our kids to see how we communicate with each other.
So they don't ever have to say, my mom and daddy, all they did was fighting. Yeah.
Exactly. They see us, doing things together. Like I said, although we're not together, we do still do family things together because we didn't grow up seeing that. But I do want my kids to be able to remember and see those things so that they know, what a family should look like. Not saying that that's what you have to do and that yours has to be ideal like that, but I don't want you to be a single mom. I don't want you to be a single father. When you do decide to have kids, it is better to have it with someone that you want to spend the rest of your life with.
If you are going to be with that person, understand. Because that's what I see a lot of relationships now are going really bad because now they're always together. Some relationships work because you're not ever together.
Right.
And some people now are like you have to be mindful that I'm going to be living in close quarters with this person for quite a while. And now I can't go to work. You can't go to work. You here.
We got to look at each other all the time.
That's another thing to be mindful. Like, listen, make sure it's somebody you like because you're going to be around them all the time. You have to talk to them all the time about everything.
And communicate. Like I was telling you, like how your marriage is. And I seen there's a celebrity, I forget who it was, where they want to live like across from each other or next door to each other. And I feel like that's fine if that works and that keeps you all relationship strong and healthy. Then who am I to say anything different? Shit, maybe that's what I needed to do. Maybe that's what I need to do. Who knows? But for my kids, I just want them to see better. And I feel like as kids, they need to have both parents around. So that's one of the reasons I haven't, relocated anywhere else is because as a single mother, I'm not even trying to raise a little boy by myself. I'm not trying to raise a little girl by myself. I feel like girls need their dads just as much as little boys need them.
Yep.
And so it's like we have to keep that positive communication going on between us for their sakes, just as well as our own. And a lot of other parents, like how I talk to my kids, I wish a lot of other parents would be more mindful of how they're talking to their kids and the things that they're doing around their kids, the things that their kids are seeing that they're trying to be sneaky about. Because that's how I learned a lot of bad behaviors is by seeing things that my mom was doing. And I guess
trying to mimic those behaviors
and mimicking them. And I can't see you over there. Hey, how you doing? Anything you want to add?
I'm just trying to get a feel out of what y'all actually talking about. So,
just effective communication, whether it's personal relationship with your siblings, family, friends, right? And how to positively be effective with them.
So it depends on what you want to call positive, because a lot of people don't take direct, a direct attitude towards certain things because they want to feel that this is disrespectful, or if you take a sideways track to it, then you don't get the picture. But
right.
Differently.
And we were saying that before, making sure that we send the correct message, clear and concise when we're speaking. It can still be direct, but it's how you say it. You don't want to go off. You don't want, right. I see the little smirk on your face. When you're being.
You have to know your audience.
Right.
Who you dealing with.
So if you go off, if you're speaking to someone doing this and all this attitude or yelling, of course you're going to receive a negative response. But if you're talking to someone how I am now, just calm, just regular talking, and I'm not being sarcastic or smart, you 9 times out of 10 aren't going to get a negative response.
You might not get a negative response, but you might get a response that you should have had.
That you should have had?
That you should have had, right. Meaning that if I'm being very calm with you and I'm talking to you this way, even though I'm saying the same thing, if I was like, you need to stop this bullshit, stop that, the way I'm coming at you aggressive, but maybe you only perceive that because it's aggressive. Because if I come at you real soft and real calm, you just think, okay, all right. And some people are just like
if you come at me real soft,
like you say, you gotta know your audience.
But if you come at me real soft, saying you need to change this bullshit,
I wouldn't say bullshit if I was coming at you real soft. Like,
right? So then you receive a positive response.
I mean,
for most people, no. For most people, like she said, you have to know your audience.
What do you mean by they won't take you serious? Like, example.
I can talk to one of my homegirls. Like, I can talk to one of my friends or one of my homegirls or somebody that I work with or a client that I work with. And I can be like, okay, listen, what you gotta do with this right here, that. They don't hear that.
Then that's on them.
But that's not
some people don't receive
they're not
calm. Some people need to be cussed out.
So, but that's what she's saying. That's why she said you have to know your audience.
That's what I was saying.
But that's why I was saying, you saying people don't receive it. Okay, some people don't, but most of the time, but that doesn't mean to not.
I didn't say it doesn't mean not to. I'm just saying you just can't always be calm and collected. Sometimes you have to change that deal.
Or sometimes you just don't have to acknowledge every dog that bark at you.
Hello. So you don't have to always just ignore it. I would choose to ignore it because I choose not to anger myself. And I feel like if I have to get upset and yell and do all of this, that's disturbing my spirit. For me personally. And I'm giving away my power. Yeah. In my unasked opinion. And I'd rather not.
You know, I just say that a lot. When you let somebody anger you, you're giving them power over you.
They're not right. Not giving them power, but you are.
I don't really believe that anymore.
Okay.
Because the reason I'm gonna say that why is because you really care about that person, they're gonna push your button. If you really care about that person, they're gonna push your button. Because if you don't care about that person, yeah, you can easily be like, all right.
I hear about a lot of people who I've had that same exact response. So like, hey, so how do they control me?
How many times have you done it though? Just one time? No. When I say how many times, I mean with that person. If that person pushed your buttons when you got upset, now you feel good, you don't get upset no more. Or is it just that one time that you feel as though they were going haywire? You're like, okay, well,
for me, it's depending on the situation, depending on the person, but in most circumstances, it's as I'm very observant. So I sit back and see how this person operates, does things, decision making and all that, how they do or don't accept or use advice. And based on what I done observed before you done ran my pressure up, it's like, you know what, I see how you do. Why am I trying to interfere with what you got going on? Like, do you? Like, and that be it. I don't have to say it no more.
Yeah,
you understand that. That's just not even that I'm shut down.
No, not shut it. I'm saying shut down.
Yeah. What I'm not going to do is use my little bit of fuel sales that I have left.
What if you're that catalyst to change, to spark change? Like, I don't listen to a lot of people. I talk to her and I talk to my brother. So if somebody else was to come to me and say this and say that, I'll take that into consideration and I'll be like, okay, yeah, maybe they're right. But my father, if he says something strictly right then and there,
it's law.
That's basically law. Yeah. That's basically put in stone. I talked to her. She'll cuss me out left fucking right. And I'm like, oh, damn it, I did something. Oh, okay, let me just shut up. Let me just shut up because I know she's right here now. So, but these are like the really only two people. But everybody else, I would aim at them. I would retaliate like so hard, so furious. It's retarded.
Why?
Because I don't trust them like that.
He's very different. This is why we always fuss. Well, it's not why we always fuss. It's just
I'm just not trying to hear
his
that.
way of thinking is it. It's very different.
Challenging.
It's always very challenging, and this is why I love having him here because he is such a freaking talent, but it's very needed. So sorry that you're a little late on it, Anthony, but I still thank you for coming. So we're already going to get ready to wrap this up. Talking about how do we want to end this? That's been my
For me, I would like to end. Last thing I need to say is to be mindful that most of us don't want to be talked out of our feelings. We would like to be supported and talk and walk through our feelings. And communicating effectively is it. Like, don't fight me on it. Let's just go along with me on the journey.
correct. Effective communication is needed regardless of is personal relationship, business relationship, husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend,
Mother and son,
mother,
father, daughter,
all of that.
stranger in the grocery store.
And how we talk to each other, how we present ourselves is definitely, especially to kids, is very key. So, thank you all for joining me. All right. So I ended that.
So